Hi everyone, my name is Jenny and I'm back today to do another video. Today I'm going to be chatting through all the books that I hope to read in February, and as with January, this list got incredibly long, so I'm just going to jump right into things. So starting with my advanced reader's copies or ARCs that I've gotten through NetGalley, the first of which is one that I'm actually currently reading, which is The Sum of Us by Heather McGhee. This one I talked about in my January TBR, but obviously did not get to it, and is a nonfiction book coming out from One World on February 16th. And this book primarily discusses the economic impacts of racism here in America, particularly the zero-sum theory, which is the idea that white people will have negative economic consequences if black people and other non-white people in America are provided resources or reparations through the government or private sources. So it's kind of exploring that idea and the myth of that idea, as well as discussing the impacts that racism due to white supremacy and pulling away from public services and such actually have negative impacts on both white and non-white people. So super enjoying this one so far. I've read the introduction as well as chapter 1 and I'm finding it super readable and engaging, so I'm excited to continue on with this one in February. Another one that I mentioned in my January TBR that I thought I would likely not get to, and that ended up being the case, is The Land of Big Numbers by T. Ping Shen. This is a short story collection coming out from Mariner Books this coming Tuesday, February 2nd, and I wasn't able to get to it in part, I think, because it's on my computer, so it's not the easiest to read, but hopefully once it comes out on the 2nd, I'll be able to either get an actual Kindle copy of it to read on my Kindle, or a physical copy or an audiobook, and hopefully we'll be able to get to this one this month. As I said, this is a short story collection primarily focused on China and its diaspora throughout the rest of the world, so I'm super excited about this, particularly given that it's a female perspective on China, which is not something that I'm super familiar with. Then another February release that I am eager to get to is Love at First by Kate Claiborne. This is coming out on the 23rd of February from Kensington Books, and Claiborne is an author that I am familiar with. I've really enjoyed all the romances that I've read so far, and this is a romance that I believe is part Enemies to Lovers, part a Romeo and Juliet retelling. This is another one that I'm super excited about and definitely will be getting to before its publication date. I also have 3 March releases that I'm super excited for that I'm hoping to get to in February. The first of those is The Conductors by Nicole Glover. This is also out from Mariner Books and is out on the 2nd of March. It is a part fantasy, part alternative history, part mystery novel that takes place in Philadelphia shortly after the Civil War. So excited about this one. I love the cover, and I'm hoping this will be a fairly quick read, but still an engaging one. Also on March 2nd, I have an early copy of American Cider, A Modern Guide to the Historic Beverage by Dan Pucci and Craig Cavallo. This is out from Ballantine Books, also on the 2nd of March, and is a nonfiction book about the history of hard cider here in America. I'm intrigued about it. I do like hard cider, and I'm particularly interested in kind of micro histories like this, so I'm hoping this one is pretty well done. I think it also has some kind of discussions around craft cider making and kind of that type of thing as well, which I'm super intrigued about. So overall excited about this one. We'll hopefully get to it this month. And then a maybe for the month, just in case I'm really on a roll with reading my ARCs for the month, I have Bloom by Nicholas Skinner. This is coming out on the 16th of March and is a middle grade novel that has a lot to do with plants and gardening and environmentalism, which are all themes that I really like, particularly if they are presented to children. So I'm super excited about this one, and we'll definitely be getting to it at some point before its publication, but I'm not sure if this was one that I'll actually get to in February or if I'll have to push it to March. This is coming out from HarperCollins Children's, as I said, on March 16th. So those are all of the advanced copies that I have, which already is a lot on my plate, but then I have my several other challenges that I'm kind of doing throughout the month. So I'll go into those now, and if you are unfamiliar with my kind of reading challenges that I've set for myself, I talked about them in depth in my January TBR, which I'll put a link to up in the cards above as well as in the description box below. But the first one that I'm participating in is the Reading Women 2021 Reading Challenge. So every month in my TBR, I've been picking 2 prompts that I will read for the next month, as well as going over the books that I will be reading for my 2 prompts for that month in this TBR. So we'll start with those. If you remember in my January TBR, the 2 prompts that I ended up pulling out of my little random pick jar were a protagonist older than 50 and a rural setting. And the rural setting I actually kind of completed this month in January by reading How Beautiful We Were by Mbolo Mbui, but there are some other books that have rural settings I'm just interested and intrigued to get to. So I've included them here, but they may or may not be as high priority as some of the other books on my TBR. So we'll start with those. As I said, I do have several of them. I have 4 of them to quickly go over. The first of which is What You Are Getting Wrong About Appalachia by Elizabeth Kate. This is a nonfiction book about Appalachia and is, I believe, a kind of cultural critique of Hillbilly Elegy by J.D. Vance. And also a kind of commentary on the national narrative of working class people in Appalachia and kind of giving a more nuanced perspective on that. So this is one that I've been super excited about, and it's super tiny, so hopefully we'll be getting to it this month. And then I also have 3 novels or fiction works, the first of which is History of Wolves by Emily Friedland. This one I've had on my shelves for quite a while, so it also fits my second challenge, which is to read books that I've had on my own TBR shelf since before 2020. And this one definitely fits that. I think I got it back in like 2017 or 2018. And this one is somewhat of a mystery, I believe, that takes place in rural Minnesota. So another one I'm excited about. Then we have another one that takes place in the rural northern western part of the country, The Flicker of Old Dreams by Susan Henderson. I don't know a ton about this one, nor do I know where it takes place, but it just says a small town named Petroleum in the west. So I'm assuming like North Dakota, Wyoming, Montana region of the country, which is definitely a region that I am interested about and would like to learn more about. And this one is another one that kind of has a mysterious element of some accident occurred and no one really knows entirely what happened, but the person who was primarily involved in the accident returns to the town, and I think things kind of start happening. So excited about Flicker of Old Dreams as well. And then finally I have a short story collection taking place in Vermont here in the US. So all 4 of these are about rural places in the United States, which is interesting because How Beautiful We Were took place in a rural part of West Africa. But this one is short stories that follow characters living in Vermont. And the back says that they are straddling the border between civilization and the wild, which to me says that these stories probably are pretty rural. So Robin MacArthur is an author that I've read from before and have enjoyed, so I'm excited about these stories as well. And then for my protagonist over the age of 50, I decided to go with Gilead by Marilynne Robinson. This is another short book, which I tried to kind of limit my books as much as possible to shorter books, given that I have so many on this list. And this one my mom actually just read because her book club is reading Jack, which is the 4th one in this set, and she had not read them before, so I encouraged her to read this one first. She didn't particularly love it, but I do know that it's pretty well loved here on BookTube, so I'm still intrigued about it, but potentially going in with some trepidation. And this is about an older man who's a pastor looking back on his life as he kind of narrates to his very young son as he is preparing for death or dying. Some sort of, death is approaching him in the near future, and so he's kind of reflecting on his life and the meaning of it. So excited about that one as well. And then if you watched my Reading Women 2021 challenge video, you'll know that I'm also trying to complete the bonus prompts, and if you did not watch the video, I'll put a link to it up in the cards above. And so every quarter of the year I'm hoping to complete one of the 4 prompts, and so for January to March I picked Alexis Wright, and I do have the Swan book, so this is another one that I'm hoping to get to this month or in March if I can't get to it in February. But this is, I believe, somewhat of a dystopian novel, a dazzling inventive novel about an Aboriginal girl living in the future world turned upside down, where ancient myths exist side by side with present day reality. So Alexis Wright is an Indigenous author from Australia. I'm intrigued about this one. I've actually heard about this one for quite a while because I believe it kind of is classified as climate fiction, which is something that is definitely intriguing to me. So hopefully we'll be getting to this one as well. And then to close out this Reading Women section of this TBR, I will pick the 2 prompts that I'll be reading for March. So the first prompt will be a biracial protagonist. I think I have some books on my physical TBR that fit that, so that's exciting. And then the second one will be this one, which is South American author in translation. So for that, I believe I was going to read an Isabel Allende book, so I'll have to acquire one of those before March. So then to do the second part of my randomizing my TBR for the month, I'm going to pick my 2 books that have been sitting on my shelves prior to 2020 that I'm hoping to read for the month. However, some of these books both are already on my TBR and also were included in my BookTube spin list, which if you did not see that video, I'll put a link to it up in the cards above. But that spin announcement of what number will be chosen to assign us all a book to read will potentially already be out by the time this video goes up. So I'm going to insert that clip now of me telling you what book I'll be reading for my list. So Rick did post this spin this morning and it landed on number 15, which on my list was Long Bright River by Liz Moore. This one is kind of longer, so I'm not entirely sure if I will get to it this month, but if not, then I will definitely be reading this one in March. And then the 2 2020 books that I'll be reading according to my jar will be this one, The Golden State. I'll get these in a minute. So The Golden State And the Lacuna. Okay, so I am back now. I went to go get the two books that I just picked. The first of which is The Golden State by Lydia Kiesling. This one is a literary fiction novel that's following a woman whose husband, I believe, has been deported. Yes, her Turkish husband is unable to return to the United States because of a click of the mouse error. So I guess he's not been deported necessarily, but he's not in the United States. And she is caring for her young daughter. And I believe the two of them go somehow to go try to rescue him, or just kind of leave their world because everything is kind of falling apart. I've heard pretty good things about this one, but I've not heard anything recently, so I think that has kind of not motivated me to pick it up. But I am excited that I will be adding this to my TBR this month. And then one that I put on my booktube spin list, which you'll see if this is the book that ended up getting picked, is Barbara Kingsolver's The Lacuna. So Barbara Kingsolver is one of my favorite authors, and this is one of the few books by her that I haven't read. I was actually planning on reading this one in December and didn't get around to it, so I'm excited that I'll be reading it this month. And this is a historical fiction novel, I think, that is set in Mexico in the 1940s and follows several artists, including Frida Kahlo, I think. Let's see. Diego Rivera and Frida Kahlo. Yeah, to the America of Pearl Harbor, FDR, and J. Edgar Hoover. So this one I've kind of heard mixed things about from people who enjoy Barbara Kingsolver. So I've been hesitant to pick it up, but excited that I'll be reading it this month. So those are two additional books for my TBR. And then in addition to all of that, the BookTube prize has also started, and I am judging in this octafinal round. I was debating whether or not I wanted to judge, and then just decided to go for it because it is something that I really enjoyed doing last year, and I was particularly excited. As I said, I would be interested in judging both fiction and nonfiction, and I actually got a nonfiction round for the octafinals, which I'm particularly excited about because my fiction, what was it? I guess it was quarterfinal round, the first round that I did last year, was just like a total dud. Like, I think there were maybe two books that I enjoyed, one of which was the one that ended up winning Girl, Woman, Other, and the other was in the finals, and the other four were just like all terrible books that I didn't enjoy at all, which I thought a nonfiction group might have a few more success stories for me than a fiction group. So I was excited about that. But I do want to get to some of those books, as several of them are very long. So there's two I'm almost definitely reading for my group. I'm in nonfiction group H, I think, maybe. You could check what books I'm reading and cross-check that information. But the two that I'm definitely hoping to get to this month, which I won't be talking about publicly on my channel until the end of the round, but I will be reading this month, are Our Bodies, Their Battlefields, War Through the Lives of Women by Christina Lamb. This one is about basically how war impacts women's bodies. I believe specifically touches a lot on sexual assault and rape. So obviously some pretty heavy topics here. We'll probably be taking this one pretty slow, but it is, as you can see, a library book. So I will have to give it back to the library at some point towards the end of the month. And the other one that I will be reading, or actually listening to as an audiobook, will be Eleanor by David Macaleus. This is another one that I potentially would not have picked up on my own, but it is one of the longer books. In fact, probably one of the longer books in the entire long list. So I thought I would try to get to it as soon as possible. So this is another one that I'll be listening to throughout the month. And in case you can't tell from the title and the portrait on the cover, this is a biography of Eleanor Roosevelt, who is an interesting person. I don't really love World War II, and there's a lot of World War II stuff happening this month, because I think I may also try to read The Splendid and the Vile by Eric Larson, which is another one of my picks this month. So I may just have kind of a World War II centric time, but I'm gonna try to go with it, go with the flow, vibe with it. So Eleanor is also on my TBR. And then I do have one other book that was also in my January TBR that I didn't get to, but this will actually be one of the first books I read because it's for my book club that I do with two of my best friends, and we are meeting next weekend, so I need to get on reading this book. But that's The Patron Saint of Liars by Anne Patchett. I've read a bit of Anne Patchett before, and I do enjoy her, and apparently both of my friends are getting along with this well so far, so I'm excited about reading it myself. And this is a historical fiction novel about a house, I believe, where unmarried pregnant women can go and like have a baby secretly and then kind of return to society. So excited about that, and we'll definitely be reading this month as I should probably start it later today. So those are all of the many books that are on my TBR for February. I'm hoping that February will be a good reading month. I will, I believe, finish 12 books in January. So if I can accomplish a similar thing in February, I should be able to get most of these read. If any of these are books that you are interested in reading in the near future or have already read and have thoughts about, do let me know down in the comment section below. Additionally, if you are new to my channel, I'd love to have you stick around and subscribe, and I will talk to you next time.